If you've been watching any type of commentary videos over the past few years, you'd likely stumble across videos discussing the Twitch streamer Pokimane, and for good reason. Her reputation at this point is the definition of divisive. People in the Twitch community generally like her and don't seem to have much of an issue with the things she does, while the other side of the internet seems to absolutely despise her due to how she responds to criticism and the seemingly fake persona she puts on for her streams. And the fact that there's this much of a divide in terms of how she is perceived is pretty interesting to me, but I think I know why this divide exists in the first place. Every time that there's any sort of controversy with her, it always starts off as a very minor complaint, but she either says something or does something that blows up the entire thing to a massive degree, and has the entire internet talking about it for a period. And I plan on covering this in detail in this video. But in order to do this, I'm going to be covering the 3 biggest examples of Pokimane getting herself into some shit over the past few years, and I'll show how in terms of handling drama and controversies, she's her own worst enemy. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. This situation is one of the first major hits against Pokimane's reputation, and if anything, I think it showed how careless she could be when handling certain situations. And this is one of the cases that made me believe that if she ever gets into controversy, she would only cause things to get worse with every decision she makes. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I feel like I need to explain some needed context first. If you're on the internet for long enough, you're bound to get into some type of argument with somebody. And it could be about literally anything, whether it's over something super serious or something that's extremely petty and doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And Pokimane is no exception to this. In late 2018, Keemstar made a few tweets essentially making fun of one of SS Sniper Wolf's fans, calling him a virgin in a tweet. And after Keem said this about this random fan, he started to get a lot of harassment from Keem's fans, which prompted Pokimane to speak out against Keem for this, saying that he shouldn't be hating on innocent fans because they don't know how to handle hate essentially. This caused a long back and forth between both Poki and Keemstar on Twitter, which honestly doesn't really matter to me, and I doubt that most people really care about this at all. Sure, you can say that Pokimane was maybe grandstanding a little bit with her statements, but other than that, nobody really cares about this, and this whole thing probably wouldn't have been remembered past this point. Because let's be real here, Keemstar getting into a fight with someone on Twitter was a daily occurrence at one point. This would have faded into obscurity if nothing else happened, but this is where Bowblax comes in. While he's now known for making videos essentially reading tweets out loud about a certain drama that's going on against a content creator, he used to make compilation videos about Twitter feuds that content creators would get themselves into. And one of his biggest uploads around this time was a video that essentially archived the tweets that both Keemstar and Pokimane made during their altercation, which is how I even have screenshots of these for this video in the first place. So thanks Bowblax, I'm gonna pretend like I didn't make this video on you a few years ago. But this video existing didn't exactly make Pokimane happy, to say the least. According to her, she just wanted the drama to end, and some people she talked to told her that the Bowblax video wasn't transformative, so she ended up copyright striking him. And to say that this was a bad decision is me being charitable towards her. She could have just completely ignored this video and went on with her day. The situation would have been forgotten about entirely. But due to her trying to hide the situation and make it go away essentially, she put way more eyes on it than there were previously. The YouTuber Faded made a few videos about the situation, all of them getting a few million views each, which skyrocketed this situation into popularity. With every commentary channel, and even some bigger YouTubers that don't do commentary content, covering this. And it just proves how trying to hide a certain drama, or just make it go away, doesn't work, and will just put more eyes onto it. Now it is important to note that Pokimane did in fact apologize for doing this, and her and Bowblax were on civil terms after the fact, so all seemed well after this, and this controversy would slowly fade over time. If Pokimane just kept to herself, she probably would have been completely fine, and the hate for her would have almost completely gone away. But Pokimane couldn't stop getting herself into controversy, which I'll talk about in my next section. Now, from what we saw in the last section, Pokimane screwed up, apologized to Bowblax for striking the video, and reversed her decision, and all was well there. Everything was resolved, and she went from one of the most hated internet personalities to someone who was barely talked about in a negative light anymore. So with all that stuff happening previously with her, I'd expect that she would try and avoid controversy in general, or avoid things that would put more negative press towards her name. That's what most people would do in the aftermath of a controversy, and it seems like a pretty easy thing to do. Just don't do something dumb and you'll be completely fine. But she couldn't do that. Instead, she did something almost 2 years after the Bowblax controversy that I'd argue is just even worse. For some more context on what exactly I'm talking about here, It's a Gundam, a commentary YouTuber with 300,000 subs at the time of this controversy, made a video going over a story of a fan of Pokimane going homeless for her. The video itself wasn't exactly taking jabs at Pokimane at all. It was just this supposed fan that he was making fun of. And this is a pretty inoffensive commentary video, all things considered. I've seen videos videos made about Pokimane and pretty much any other commentary target that are way harsher than this video, so it didn't seem like any drama would come from this. But Pokimane decided to react to this video on a live stream, and had a pretty negative reaction to it, which is fine honestly. If she just left it at her not liking the video, there would literally be no drama here to be found, and I wouldn't be making this section right now. But she made one of the worst decisions she could have done throughout all of this, and decided to go after his sponsors. And it wasn't just one little comment that she made out of anger either. She literally went on a minute-long rant about the fact that a commentary video about her would get sponsors on it.
She can't believe anyone would sponsor these shenanigans. Like, what? And I will say, for this company to sponsor a video that's literally 20 minutes of talking shit about me, you will never see... Dude, your website's so ass it won't even load. But if you ever reach out to me, if I ever see you in my inbox, on site. Like, no company should do that just about ever. Oh, is this a video where some random dude behind a VR machine calls a girl a for 20 minutes? Really want to put my logo on that one. Ha ha.
And honestly, I think this is one of the dumbest things she could have done. For one, she was directly targeting Gundam's revenue source, and according to him, even got one of his sponsors to drop the channel completely. Which isn't exactly the greatest thing to do, to say the least. I know, brave take for me there. I'm totally saying something new. But another thing I want to touch on is that this just contradicts Pokimane's statements that she said previously. In 2018, she got mad at Keemstar because according to her, he was sending his fans to harass some guy, which wasn't alright. But I'd argue that this is way worse than what she was getting mad at him for. Considering what she was saying about his sponsors, her fans could have went to Gundam's channel and spammed his sponsors with messages telling them to remove him. I don't really care about audience responsibility. I think it's unrealistic to expect someone to control most of their fans, as there were so many people watching these guys. But if Pokimane is going to berate Keemstar because he called someone a virgin jokingly in a tweet because of what his fans did as a result, then she should hold herself to a similar standard and watch exactly what she says because of how her audience could respond to the things that she says, especially when someone's income is being threatened here. The last thing I want to mention about this though is that Pokimane did make an apology video. I'll admit that it's pretty decent, especially at the time that it came out. She pretty much owned up to most of what she did wrong in the video and took accountability, but what kills it for me is that she continued this type of behavior years after this and didn't really change, which is what I will talk about in my next section. Now, this is the most recent controversy regarding Pokimane, and I feel like everything that I talked about before, with how Pokimane handles controversies and how she makes everything worse for herself, applies especially to this situation. But before I can explain this any further, I feel like I need to give some context. For anyone who isn't exactly in the loop with the situation, Pokimane recently started her own food company. She started to sell these cookies called the Myna's Midnight Cookies, which were $28 for 4 bags of cookies, or $7 per bag, which got her a good bit of criticism from her audience and the internet in general. People started to give Pokimane a lot of flack due to her cookies clearly being overpriced, especially for the amount of food that they were getting for the said price. Now, I personally don't care too much about this. This isn't the first time that an online celebrity sold an overpriced item for their fans. One of the most egregious examples of this was Logan Paul's old merch, which he could probably use the profits of to pay back the CryptoZoo victims, but that's a story for a different day. So these practices are pretty common when it comes to YouTubers selling things. I can see why others would criticize it, but I personally couldn't care less. There were also other criticisms, like the fact that this was just a relabeled product from another company, but that's already a common practice, so I don't really care about that either. So with this explanation so far, I bet you would think that this story is just a nothing burger, and you would probably be right about that for the most part. People are getting mad about an overpriced food product from an internet influencer. What's new, honestly? It doesn't seem that serious at all. But Pokimane made probably one of the worst decisions she could have made throughout the entire thing, which is to insult the people that were criticizing her for the price of her cookies. I wish there was more context that I could explain to this to maybe give her the benefit of the doubt here in some way, but there really isn't. I'll play the full clip though just so you can get the full picture of what she actually said.
When people are like, oh my god, $28 for cookies? It's 4 bags. That's $7 a bag. I know math is hard when you're an idiot, but Like, if you're a broke boy, just say so. Anyways.
Let's ignore the fact that this is one of the only funny Pokimane clips for a second here, and focus on what she actually did here for a second. I think it's a pretty stupid decision, to say the least, to respond to criticism about the price of a product by calling the people complaining broke. I'm not an expert on PR by any means, but her saying this was probably not helping her cookie sales by any means. I checked the like to dislike ratio on her recent video on her YouTube channel, and she was flooded with dislikes after everything. This definitely isn't a good look for her, to say the least, especially when you combine this with some other replies that she left to people on Twitter. She did eventually apologize for this, but I really wouldn't call it an actual apology. Essentially, all she did was try to claim that she was joking with her statements, but that she was sorry about how it came across, which I'm gonna be completely honest here, I don't think your statement was a joke at all. The full context of the clip includes her trying to justify the price of her cookies by calling someone an idiot, saying that the cookies are $7 a bag, which doesn't really matter since it doesn't look like you could buy one bag individually, but that's irrelevant to my point here. After she says this, she then makes this quote-unquote joke. What I think happened personally is that she got legitimately mad that people were criticizing her, and that was her response. If she just made the broke comment, maybe I could see the argument that it was a joke, but the full context of the clip makes it clear to me that she wasn't exactly just joking around here. This clip is a perfect example of Pokimane being her own worst enemy. She could have just ignored the criticisms, or just addressed them in a calmer manner. This controversy likely wouldn't have existed after the fact, but she just had to react to everything like a baby, like she always does. You'd think that after being called out for years for similar incidents, some being admittedly way worse than this, that she'd learn a bit, but I guess that isn't going to happen, which is sad to say the least. But that's pretty much all I have to say for this section though. Moving on. Pokimane is someone who just baffles me with every decision she makes. With every single controversy that she finds herself in, the easiest thing for her to do would just be to not say anything. The hate would have died out completely, and she could have just gone back to her very easy job of being a Twitch personality, playing video games, reacting to videos, whatever she does on her streams. But she doesn't really do that a lot of the time. Instead, she chooses to respond to what people are saying in the worst way possible, turning a lot of people against her in the process. And I feel like this is a very easy thing to avoid in all honesty. You could have problems with what people say about you, and that's fine, but you have the option of not lashing out on your streams and acting like a complete baby due to it. And I find it to be kind of funny that she's constantly defended whenever she does something pretty dumb like this. Other people don't get the same luxury. People have argued that Pokimane gets a lot more hate than others because she's a woman, but I'd honestly argue that she's usually given a slap on the wrist compared to others. Other people have had their entire fan base turn on them due to things like this, and other streamers massively turning their backs on them and condemning them. And while I'm not necessarily saying that this should happen to Pokimane, I do think that she's given a special type of treatment compared to others. But if she keeps on saying things like this and screwing up, this good faith that people give her will probably go away. And this is why I say that Pokimane is her own worst enemy. But with all of that being said, I'm done with this video. Thanks for watching. Sorry for being gone for a bit, but I needed to come up with some new video ideas, and I couldn't exactly do that with the weekly schedule that I was giving myself. So I might be a little bit more inconsistent after this point, but I'll try and stay as active as I can without burning myself out. I have links in the description in case you want to support me monetary-wise, or on any other social media, but just watching this video is enough for me to be happy. And with that, I'm done with this video. Oh yeah, one last thing. #FLM.